Good morning.
Ooh, did you see that?
I
Who was
did.
that?
Ah,
Tom thinks he's getting his way. No, Tom. Just kidding. Producer Tom, I know clicking around, hit the wrong button. If you have something to say, Tom, you can pop in. But we have an agenda today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the chat session Friday chat session with Michael and Ben, or Michael and Constitution Vet. All right. I guess the communication going back and forth prior to today's episode, I was lost. I didn't know what was going on. We were talking about what's our topic, and I guess you are talking about this topic elsewhere, and I'm like, yeah, we can talk about that topic.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, term limits. I'm just telling you, it's not sexy. It's not a sexy topic. People see that on the thumbnail. And then I put in a suggestion, but it didn't. I just guess it didn't get through. I put in a suggestion. Let's say, how do we fix the corrupt DOJ? And that would have been a sexier title. But the fix is term limits, right? Right?
Yeah. So I think I do truly believe that term limits can solve a lot of problems when it comes to the swamp and like the deep state. As corrupt as the executive branch can be, the executive branch isn't chosen by the people except for the top person in charge. But the legislative branch is chosen by the people, or at least it should be. And term limits would bring that back to the people.
Dude, I have a. I guess I'm hesitating to disclose this. Okay, I won't give any names, but I am connected through the project that I'm working on, the main project, and I don't have to go into that right now, but I have a big project. So I'm a Hollywood guy and I work on a TV show. That's my day job. But on the side, I've been developing my own thing for the last 5 years, and it's moving, right? In Hollywood, things take a long time. And if you want to own it yourself, you're going to persist with it. Right? If you don't want to own it, you just sell it and see if you can get some money off it. But I want to own it and mine it anyway. So this project has brought me into some circles that I never expected I would be a part of. And one of those circles is high level historians, like Ivy League historians. And so I'm friends with some very elite people, or at least I'm connected to some elite people. And gosh, I'm giving too much information. Right. So I've had dinner, I've sat down and had dinner because of some of these contacts. I've had dinner with a very high level law enforcement official.
Okay.
And I guess it would fall under the executive branch, right? The attorney general, that's the executive branch, right?
Yeah, that's
So
one of many branches. That's one of many positions in the executive branch.
So that's pretty high up. So obviously, the president is the head of the executive branch,
Right.
and then the Secretary of State, I would say, is the second. Right, would be the second in command.
No, well, the
In the
vice
executive
president
branch.
is the second in
Oh yeah,
command, but the secretary of state is simply just another
but it's more of a
secretary in
figurehead.
charge of a department. That's it.
All right. Well, but the attorney general. So
Mhm.
I had dinner with somebody whose direct boss, is the attorney general.
Like
Right,
federal or
somebody
state
who
level?
the attorney general of the United
Oh,
States,
the big level. Okay.
the top lawyer, right? Attorney
Okay.
general is the highest lawyer in the land, right? Attorney
Mhm.
general. And so this person that I had dinner with, if they were to get a promotion, the only place they could go would be to become the attorney general. That's the only way up. This is somebody that's at the very top of her department, that is one that's under the attorney general.
Okay.
And so in the current administration, right? Because those positions get swapped out when the administration changes hands, right? When it
Right.
changes parties, all those positions of influence get swapped out. And
Right.
so I have been, and this is a person that if they knew who I was, they would I might be on their list to investigate. But I was having dinner with them. We were talking about other subjects, and they had no idea that I'm this quote unquote right wing MAGA patriot. So I'm like, I am on a first name basis with somebody whose boss is Merrick Garland.
Okay, interesting.
And so I next time I see this person, you know, I'm going to ask them. You know, I'm thinking, what are good questions that would not tip them off? I'm going to ask them. So, what are you going to do the next time the presidency changes hands or changes parties? Right? What's your next job? Right? Because they're not term limited. Those positions are appointed. Okay, let's break this down. Elected positions can be term limited, but appointed positions can be for life.
It depends. It depends. Because technically, Supreme Court justices are nominated by the president, but they go through a job interview through the legislative branch. And guess what? Every person in charge of every executive branch department also goes through the legislative branch to go through their job interview.
Right.
Okay. And if the people in the legislative branch approve of that person, then they're good. Okay. So now, when it comes to serving for life, okay, it's just until they retire, like a certain doctor who's going to retire in what, December? Who
Anthony?
just got grilled again by my boy Rand Paul. Okay. So again, he's retiring, but that position is not for life, unlike the Supreme Court.
So tell me what's wrong with term limits and how it can solve.
Sorry, I'm looking at the question now.
Is it the Constitution that determines current times for congressional serving term limits? Terms.
So yeah, the Constitution does make it very clear that the president will serve. Well, okay, it was an amendment to the Constitution that made it clear that the president cannot serve more than 2 terms. But there's nothing in there about congressional members serving for a certain number of terms. And that's the point. Because the problem that we have is when you do not have term limits, you have people like Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, who've spent the majority of their adult life in Congress. And to me, that's a really big problem because you are shutting out any new ideas. You are stifling the flow of new ideas, new perspectives that can greatly influence the lives of all Americans. But when you have certain people who get comfortable with their position and don't actually do anything like they're supposed to, then what's the point?
I was looking at a picture of Mitch McConnell yesterday because I did a video on my channel, Sweet Home Maricopa, talking about Mitch McConnell pulling funding from Blake Masters' Senate campaign in Arizona. He pulled $8 million out of the September budget for Blake Masters. Right, you have all these GOP candidates, and the GOP infrastructure is supposed to support them, and they're supposed to allot finances for all these different campaigns, and they decided to pull, I guess, $8 million that were previously allotted for the September Blake Masters, and Mitch McConnell's the one in charge of that. And so I was looking at a picture, I was doing a video on it, and I looked at a picture of Mitch McConnell, and I was just like looking at his face, and I'm like, this guy knows that he is an elite. Right? You look at him and it's like, oh, this guy's been in this position forever. And he knows there's this pride. You can tell he's got this, I am an important person. I am a representative or a senator. I am a United States. I represent the United States of America, and I'm a mover and a shaker. And I am responsible for the conservative Supreme Court because I did not approve Merrick Garland in the last year of the Obama administration. Right? He's got this script that he tells himself,
Right.
but he's also got a wife that and I mean, they're in bed with the CCP. I mean, what the heck, right? When you're at that level and you're so connected, so term limits, right?
Yeah, when we go back to the founding of our country,
Yes, please.
our founding fathers never intended for any representative to
Thank
be
you,
in
Robin
Congress
Spielman. You have good faith.
forever.
Everyone God is in control. Sorry, I'm just reading.
Absolutely. Yeah, the founding fathers never intended for anyone to serve in that position for 20 plus years. That was never their intention. Keep in mind, when our country was founded, these were guys who had other jobs, they had other responsibilities. They actually did sacrifice their time and their lives to do this crazy thing called let's create a republic, a constitutional republic. Ben Franklin made it very clear. He was like, the only way to prevent real, true tyranny is term limits, is to remind the people in power that, hey, you are the servant, not the ruler. And whenever you do not have term limits, you get comfortable. You feel safe. You feel like you have all the time in the world to do whatever you want. Meanwhile, you're collecting extreme media presence for free. You're collecting immense salaries every year. And so, what you were saying earlier, let's back up for a second. What's the real reason to be a senator or a representative? The reason is to represent the people in your state and your district. That's it.
No,
That's it.
it's to line your pockets as quickly as possible. Right? It's to line your pockets with, you got lobbyists and you've got foreign interests and you've got.
I mean, think about it. Think about it. If you hired someone for your company, you would hire them. Why? Because they're qualified for the position. Okay. They have the skills. Okay. And they can tell you, I'm coachable, I'm teachable, I can get the job done. Okay, cool. Down the line, you give them tasks to do, and they say, oh okay, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, when? It'll get done. When? Don't worry about it. It'll get done. When will it get done? Then you try firing them. Well, they can't get fired. They're protected. They're protected by others who pay the lines of the pockets of their boss. The point is, if we used what Congress is doing without term limits to any business, all businesses would crumble. They would fail. Why is it that we should hold any employee to a certain standard and expect results? And if they don't deliver those results, we let them go. We fire them. Why can't that happen to Congress too? Great point, Robin.
Certain people in Congress certainly. Oh, too late. I was going to read it. We're switching. Which one do I read first? Go back to Robbins. I didn't read it and then put Bonnie's out. Let's read them. Certain people in Congress certainly have had all the time in the world to do all kinds of shenanigans with no fear of ever losing their position. Term limits absolutely need to be implemented. Now let's go to Bonnie's. That was a fatal flaw. They never intended that people serve for decades and decades. Should have made a ruling around that one. All right. So in the 30s, 40s, that they because the president, they didn't have term limits for the president either until like the 1930s, 40s, whenever it was passed.
Yeah, FDR.
Right after FDR. And they're like, yeah, that feels like a dictator or that feels like a king, right? And it's the problem, and that's the same problem that we're having now with senators, right? That name recognition and incumbency are automatic people who don't do the research and don't find out what the different people want to do when they're running for office, and they just go to the ballot box. It's name recognition. Like, that one sounds familiar. I guess that one's been around and doing a fine job. Click, right? And so what's the solution? I mean, how don't the representatives and senators, how would you get term limits if they don't exist? You'd have to propose something similar to what they did for the president, and
Right.
then they all vote on it. I'm going to
Well,
vote myself out of office.
this was brought up a few years back at the federal level. It didn't gain enough traction as it needed, but it has gained traction amongst the states. And that's where you start. Once you have state legislatures creating term limits, eventually the federal position will take notice and say, oh crap, the state legislatures have term limits. And then what's beautiful about the states is the states can initiate an amendment to the Constitution. Then the federal government has to respond. They have to do something.
And
The states can start that.
uh, and then it has to be like a 2/3 majority or something. I don't know,
Of the states,
of the
yeah.
states.
Not just federal Congress.
All right. Well, is it going to happen? All right. Is it even going to happen?
Well, first off, a lot of things have happened in the past year that none of us would have ever guessed, good and bad. So I am not going to put this off the table. I'm not going to be like, it will never happen. Well, no, it could happen. And the fact that it could happen is enough for me right now. The fact that the Florida governor and the Texas governor just sent a bunch of illegal immigrants to the front doorstep of people up in the safe areas in Martha's Vineyard in Washington, D.C., the fact that that can happen tells me that the state leadership can enact term limits on their legislatures. In fact, there's a website, just termlimits.com, that can show you the current progress of the states of where they're at right now as far as term limits. Sorry.
No, that's good. Here's my thinking on it. I don't mean to. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm for it, and I agree.
Sure.
But we have the midterms coming, and even in the worst case scenario, we still take the House, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the House is pretty much a foregone conclusion,
right.
And there's a very good chance that we take the Senate as well.
Right.
And as soon as that happens, a lot of the naysayers are like, yeah, so what? Nothing's going to happen. Well, actually, a lot is going to happen, and I think, in particular, with this new class coming in,
mm-hmm.
more will happen than in the past. Right? We are living in unprecedented times. People are definitely, I hesitate to say up in arms, because that tends to be, is that a trigger or a dog whistle or whatever? But people, the metaphor up in arms, right? People metaphorically are up in arms about stuff going on, and that includes all these people running for office. A whole bunch of people that are running for office this time, that it is specifically the corruption and the problems that have motivated them. And so I like to think that in January, when all the new people get put into their positions, and all these investigations like Hunter Biden laptop and the southern border and the FISA court abuses, there's all kinds of stuff. So where on that list, it's like you have to have a champion for a cause, right? You have to have a person that is a figurehead that leads it, and they can have their coalition, they can have their co-endorsers of their cause. So where on the list of needs that are pressing right now that we need fixed, where do term limits fall, right? Is that going to be high in the tally, or is it going to be, as we solve these other things, that will work its way up?
Well, this is the irony to this. This is the irony. If you implement term limits, it gives everyone a deadline to get things done, so that all the other issues will have to be dealt with at some point. If you do not have term limits, even if new people come in, they can say that they'll get the job done, but again, we don't know if they actually will. Now, to be fair, you do have re-elections. And these new people coming up, they may not have the deep state funding that the old ones have. But I'm still a firm believer. When it comes time for new people to come in, it'll be new ideas, new perspectives. And my hope is that when you have that new energy, that new fire coming in to the House and the Senate, my hope is that that will encourage them to start tackling major issues like term limits. And like I mentioned before, the real focus isn't at the federal level. The real focus is on the state level. Again, if 2/3 of the state have enough of support of term limits, they can initiate an amendment to the Constitution. And then Congress and federal government has no power at all.
Well, I've got a spin on it here. Let's see if this works. But before that, I don't know. I don't hear this on anybody's lips saying this, but I believe. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think 2022 investigations. Biden will be impeached. I don't know if he'll be convicted in the Senate because impeachment isn't a conviction. It's just now you have to go to the Senate and vote on convicting, right?
Right.
And so maybe he'll be convicted in the Senate, and that means he has to step down or he's physically removed or something. And then if it's Kamala as our first, female president, or if investigations expose her or whatever, and then the Speaker of the House becomes president, right? Those are all possible scenarios, right? But I think this wave that we're in is a long-term wave, and so it's going to be gradual fixing. People are pessimistic, but I really think we've turned a corner. I think 2016 was that corner. That's when it was turned. That was if you think of the deep state as this veneer, right? The deep state that's grown, it was this veneer, and 2016 was a crack in the veneer, and it's a crack that you can't fix, right? If you get a crack in your windshield, you got to replace your windshield because that crack continues to grow. And we're at that. Like 2016 was a smash to that veneer, and now the cracks are spreading.
That's a good analogy.
And you can't reverse those cracks. It is forever cracked. So that's what I mean about the red wave. It's going to crack and crack, and that veneer is actually being removed right now. And I think it'll take 15, 20 years. It'll be, Trump in 24 and DeSantis in 28 and DeSantis in 32, right? So it's this long-term thing. And I think if I'm right about that, I think term limits will come into the conversation. I don't think it's going to be at the top of anybody's list in the short run, but I think that's a part of the long-term fix so that we don't get into that problem again.
Right.
Now,
right.
Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, term limits is a bipartisan thing. This can bring people together from both sides. But whether you call yourself a conservative or liberal, I think both people can say, yeah, term limits would be a good idea.
Yeah.
If you tell people in power, hey, you only have this power for a certain amount of time, and you only have it because the people chose you for that position. Furthermore, one more idea I have, and this is a little controversial. My other idea is you, as a representative or a senator, make no more than the average salary of your state or your district. Now, of course, that would be like, whoa, that'd be really different. Yeah, it would be. And I think that would definitely remind the people in charge, you're not our rulers. You are our servants. But I think the longer you stay in any position, you forget that fundamental truth.
I love that idea. And I think, I'm thinking of problems with it. And one of the problems with it is, but I know the way around this problem. But one of the problems with that, that their rate or their salary, Washington, D.C., since they have to be there, it's the highest, the property values there are higher than anywhere else on the planet. And so they'd be like, well, I can't afford to live here if my income is the average Indiana income. I can't afford Washington, D.C. rates. Well, then stop hanging out in Washington, D.C. and do your meetings virtually now that we know that is the right way to do it, and just stick around in your state and live with your people that you represent, and then log in, and you don't have to be physically in DC anymore, right?
Yeah. Or
Live within your means. Figure
right,
out how to live within your means, and then
right.
implement policies that help people to live within their means.
Or treat it like this. Treat it like you're in the military. See, regardless of the military branch, when you join, everyone gets free housing. Everyone. It's covered, paid for by the taxpayers. Okay? Now, whether it's a dorm room or barracks, doesn't matter. The solution to that, every person in Congress will be provided the basics. Okay? A roof over your head, a living room, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom. That's it. No more of this whining and dining at your fancy resort of a home. No more room for your lobbyists to come party. No, no, no. When you are in that position, you live humbly. Now it's free. The government will cover it. The government will cover the cost of your lodging, and the government will cover the cost of basic transportation. But that's it.
Man,
That's it.
if we could get that in place, fewer people would run for office. I mean, fewer the wrong kind of people, the right kind of people. It's like, I know it's a sacrifice, but it's meaningful to me.
Well,
Anyway,
that's the point.
well, you're right. Oops, I dropped something. Real quick before we run out of time. So somebody earlier in the comments was saying term limits for MSN News, or term limits on MSN News, and I think they were meaning like let's limit the people that can, spout nonsense. So term limits. I'm gonna do a kind of, there it is. Term limits on MSN News and Ball. Thank you. Well, I think some of those people are term limiting themselves out. The terms that they're using are getting themselves fired. Right? Their terms are limiting their employment, such as what's his name, Stelter. Like he got fired
Yeah.
because the terms. That when I say terms, it's the leftist propaganda. Those terms of leftist propaganda will limit your employment. Right? Get woke, go broke. That's what I mean. Get woke, go broke. You're limiting yourself. You're killing your audience, right? You're catering to an ever shrinking audience. You need to change your terms. Start speaking just the news and just the facts, right? And start realizing what America wants, right? There are polls out there that say, yeah, most Americans are absolutely not into abortion at 9 months, right? Most Americans like, no, and that's what the Democrat platform is today, right? There's no gray area. It's like you either allow abortion all the way up to 9 months, or you hate women.
But see, with term limits also would encourage the rise of third parties. It would tell the underdog, hey, you have a chance. You're not going up against an undefeatable, rotten dirtbag up there. You have a chance to get your views out there. So the new perspectives that come in, the new fresh ideas will encourage just more freedom to the people.
Yep. And getting more people involved. I think that is what's coming. I do think this thing that has happened, this movement, is not something. I mean, the media will spin it, but people are awake now. Like, people are waking up. It's like, how come these people are? I mean, Kamala Harris said the border is secure.
No, it's not.
Right? and what's her name? Karine Jean-Pierre said, said the 2018 election was stolen from Stacey Abrams. She said the election was stolen, and now she's saying you can't say that. It's like, come on, people. Why can you say it at one moment and not at the other moment? People are starting to realize that these people are just trying to cling to power with just radical denialism. They're totally in denial. They're
Right.
saying, wow, we're out of time already. Wait, I want to read that. Brian Williams, for example, just moved around. He's not off the playing board. Oh, Brian Williams, who was lying about, you remember that story? Like, he got shot at, his helicopter was shot at or something. He totally lied. They try to make themselves, we don't have enough time to go on that tangent. How are you doing? I'll let you sign off here. I'll give the last 10 seconds to you.
Okay, great. Patriots, never surrender, never submit. keep fighting, keep digging, and never stop asking questions, because that's how you create amazing things like term limits.
Amen. See y'all next week.
Take care.